I have this Cal 44, IWC Cal 44 movement from the late 1950s that I had done a rebuild of, and it ran a little bit slow, and now it's not running. And I didn't, that's like a 16-hour video at the beginning of my channel. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never opened a watch movement before. I just tried to do it by videotaping everything I was doing and then taking it apart, oiling it, and putting it back together. Anyway, it was a odyssey, to say the least. And at the end, it barely worked, but it worked enough that I had some confidence that I could do it properly if I tried to learn how to do watchmaking. And now I've had a few months of additional experience in watching videos about watchmaking. So eventually, not this moment, but eventually I'm going to attempt to rebuild this movement and get it working well. But the thing I'm going to do today is take a look at it, because I have a microscope now and I have some better tools. I have the oils necessary to oil it properly. But I'm not going to get into all that. But the only thing I want to do was look at it and see if I can look at the balance wheel and see if the pinions on the balance wheel are intact or not. So that would mean I need to open it enough to take out the balance wheel, look at the balance wheel under the microscope, and if the balance wheel axle or whatever with the pinions on the top and the bottom is damaged, I have a replacement, but I would need some tools to put that replacement in there. Basically, staking tool with small enough bits. A staking tool is basically just a tool that allows you to press things together, rivet things together, wheels to axles and things like that. So I want to figure out if I need to replace that before I get into the bigger project of doing it, just out of curiosity, because it could take weeks or months to get that tool at a reasonable cost. So before I do that, I need to put on some additional finger cots. So I have this system for finger cots now, this is a tiny little Swiss product of folding scissors. So after I put them on, I cut them to relieve the pressure because otherwise I'm not very comfortable wearing these. They eventually make me feel like circulation's being cut off in my fingers. Doing this left-handed could be tricky. There's a funny thing about scissors, which is like, there you go. You have to, if you're using right-handed scissors left-handed, you have to put this kind of unnatural squeezing pressure on it for it to work. That's the wrong way. Okay, that's strange. It's like a twist that if you're right-handed and you use it, you naturally twist it that way. But if you're left-handed, you would twist it the other way. That one maybe I don't have to do. Oh, yeah, we'll see. Okay, anyway, I'm going to try this. Now, the idea behind finger cots is not that they're sterile or anything like that, but just that particularly today it's very hot. So if I didn't use these, my fingers are sweating and greasy, and they would just be putting stuff all over the movement. Okay, so I'm gonna. Oh, there's another thing here, which is I got this case along with this lot of $80 of vintage watch parts. And it's going to be a great little case for this movement if I ever get it working. So I have a separate Cal 44 identical movement with a different dial and hands that's cased in an original IWC case. But I have bought an extra movement without a case. So the cool thing will be, if I can get this working, I actually have a case for it. And it actually kind of looks correct because it's gold. And it's a very simple Calatrava case. So that'll be fun to, it's an incentive to actually get this movement working. So to take off the balance wheel alone, let's look at what we would have to do. Should we take the hands off? Probably. Yeah, I'm not gonna. So here's the thing. You see how that's at 515? That means that the minute hand is going right into the 3 o'clock position where the stem is. And the minute hand is the only thing that could bump into the case holder. So as long as I know it's there and it's safe there, then I can kind of trap the dial in this case holder, and I don't have to remove the hands and the dial, which just means a little bit less wear on the watch. And then if my memory serves me correctly, I can take off the balance wheel with a single screw and examine it. So that's what I want to do today. And then I have this insanely small this thing says axe on it, but it's a IWC Cal 44 part 6154, which I've checked this a couple times. I'm almost positive that it's the balance wheel pinion top and bottom axle, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a technical term for it. And the thing about the reason I bought that without knowing anything about watchmaking is when I got this watch that had this movement in it, at certain angles, it ran, but it didn't run at certain angles. So I was like, well, if it doesn't run at certain angles, just thinking it in my mind, I was like, it's probably the balance wheel has some wear on the pinions, which I didn't know the name of, but now I do. And the pinion was either missing or something. So when you tip it a certain way, the balance wheel tips and drags on something. And I still think that that's the case, although I don't really have any evidence of that. And the sad thing is I don't have any evidence of that, even though I completely disassembled and reassembled this movement. It took me 16 hours. The reason I don't have any evidence is because it is so tiny that without a microscope, you just would never know. And that's why also now I have the microscope, I have better tools, and I can at least take a look at that and then prepare what's going to happen when if I'm going to need to replace that or not. And if it's fine, which would be good news, then I don't need that part, and I also don't need a press or whatever you call it. Staking tool. Okay, let me get the microscope going. So this is going to block some views, but it's going to give a better view of some stuff as well. One of the things it blocks is the view of my face, for better or for worse. Now, the idea with you can work under the microscope, but right now I'm using the microscope more. I can glance at the screen and see details of what I'm doing, but also it's mainly so that you can see what I'm doing. And so I'm still going to work in the kind of normal watchmaker way, which is just like visually looking at stuff. Okay, so for this I need the largest screwdriver. You can also look at the screwdriver tip. That looks okay to me. One thing I think about when I do this stuff is like if I was a real watchmaker, if somebody came in and said, I have this repair, this movement is exhibiting this problem, kind of understanding what's involved, like, oh, we should look at the jewel on top of the, man, did I drop that already? Yeah, I dropped it inside the movement. Cool. I'm going to try dumping that. It's probably slightly more gentle than reaching in there. What was I saying? Oh, let's look at that jewel under the microscope. I think I have looked at this pivot actually. Let's see if I can move that with some air. Okay, it's hard to see that with the ring light on because you got that bounce back. Now it doesn't want to have enough exposure. So what I recall seeing inside this, when it was running slowly, but it was running, I took it to the EPHJ watch tool expo in Geneva, and I put it under $100,000 Hyrox microscope, and it was running at that time, and we watched it. The pivot on the top, you could see it in the jewel, but it had probably a little bit more play than maybe it should have. But I don't think it was missing altogether. But if it has enough play, then in theory the balance wheel, let's see if we can look at that. if there's too much play, then the balance wheel could you would think would be able to rock a little bit. Like that. So to some extent it should rock like that because of the shock setting in the jewel, but it probably shouldn't rock that much. That's my guess, even though I am not an expert on these things. So, oh, the next thing is this also. That jewel, it may be an optical illusion, or that that may not be seated correctly, the spring holding that jewel. So let's try to look at that. I just cannot see this with my eyes, so I have to go to the microscope. Guess that's okay. So I'm hoping from that also I already took out that screw, so this is not really fair, because that could that whole balance part could already be kind of coming up and out of alignment. But okay, so that's what I want to do. And then to examine this, may need some Rodico. Got some Rodico Premium for this. Hello? Hey, yeah?
I was just, I didn't know you left, but I know you left. So, I want to know if you would check on T.
Yeah, I'll check on him, but yeah, I'll check. If he comes there, tell him to give. I said to give me a call. If he comes there first.
And I have no idea when you're right here. When was it coming in there? But...
Yeah, me neither. Okay. Okay, bye. Okay. Now, how much you want to bet that Rodico won't stick to this? I'm thinking about, what am I trying to do? I actually want to look at not this, but at the balance wheel itself. So this needs to be sitting upright so the balance wheel can sit upright. Okay. Then we need some focus. and some zoom. Now this is what I suspected. I think the pivot is gone on the bottom of this. That pivot looks gone to me. But the pivot that we saw in the microscope is okay. You can kind of see it through the spring there. But the bottom pivot is gone. And that's why at a certain angle and maybe in general, that may be a problem for this balance wheel, but certainly it affects it at a certain angle. So the next thing to do is to look at this pivot or this axe or part 6154 and just confirm, because I just bought this on eBay or some watch parts website. Need to confirm that that looks like it's the right part. I did look at this by itself under a microscope, and it did have both pivots intact. But I looked at this before, and I don't really understand. I guess there's a... Okay, so I guess this is so crazy. I need to move this microscope a tiny bit. You see, visually these don't look like the same part. However, this could be something that is actually using a staking tool. This could be a part that actually fits over part of this and holds it. So, and then the top part, just trying to make it so we can see. I think that's what's going on there. It's hard to see through the hairspring. See that part with the impulse jewel? Oh yeah, actually you can see there. There's something behind that. Um, I'm still just not convinced that that's the right replacement part. I guess the other thing we could look at is, does the impulse jewel, that part that the impulse jewel is on, does it look like that could come off? It does, kind of. Like right in there, it looks like there's a separation of those parts. So this part could pull off, and then you put this part in the center of the balance wheel, and you press that back on. But to do that on a tiny piece like this, that's going to be insane. And does that have like some kind of collar on this side, or what's holding that? Oh, I'm curious about something else. I don't believe any of this could be done without a microscope, but I just want to try it, looking at it with a loupe. For two reasons. One is that in 1950, I suppose they had optical microscopes, but they didn't have... Well, obviously they had microscopes. What is this loupe? I think I ordered some better loupes. This loupe doesn't even tell you what the magnification is. So I suppose what I can do is I can do some research on this part and the assembly of the balance wheel on this or other Albert Peloton IWC calibers of the same family, and see if just try to confirm that this part is the right part. I think it is. It's just kind of hidden by the things it's pressed into, the additional parts. But I'm impressed by my own intuition that was the part that was needed. And what I did was I took this movement, which was in the other watch case, up to a really fancy watch store with repair in the Vallée de Joux, which is like the heart of watchmaking in the Geneva area. Like Patek Philippe has a place there, and Audemars Piguet, and a lot of big brands, Blancpain. Anyway, I went to like downtown. There was like a watch shop with a repair service, and I gave them this and the movement, and I said how much would it be, or the whole watch, and they told me the estimate was 600 Swiss francs, and that was for a revision without changing any dial or hands or anything, just revising, like disassembly and reassemble the movement. But I provided them with this, and they didn't say anything about it, but this would have helped them a lot because they wouldn't have needed this part, and that part is the part that's needed, even if this is not the right piece, but I'm guessing it is. Okay, I think I'm talking in circles here. Like I said, this was not my plan to try to do this repair right now. Honestly, it's hard for me to imagine ever doing that repair, especially the way I'm treating this movement right now. I think there's a problem as soon as you start getting into see this has to even this part is insane. Let me just kind of let that rest for a second. Just to install that balance wheel, even if it didn't have a broken pivot on the bottom, that impulse jewel that we were looking at on the bottom of that has to go in. So first of all, you have to make sure that the fork is in this position, which it is. Like, it's got two positions. It's got this position, and it's got this position. And the fact that it snaps back and forth is an indicator that there's power going through the gear train. Now, the reason that I want to install this somewhat correctly is just so that I don't damage it more. But I don't expect it to work. But the point is that impulse jewel has to go into that. I'm going to zoom in again. See how that fork is 3 fingers? There's one on the bottom, which is on a lower plane, and then these 2 on the side. The impulse jewel has to actually go into that fork, and the impulse jewel is the jewel right there. So as you put this on, you have to start with the pallet fork in that position. You have to come in with the whole thing, slide it in there, rotate it into place. Now the automatic movement should be removed and everything at this point. It's not. So this is like not the way to do this, but. I'm gonna do this. Ooh, that Rodico likes that rubber. I can zoom out a bit here. Now, it's hard to tell if this impulse jewel is in the right place or not, but one way of telling is if the if it works, but it's not going to work because it's broken. Now the other thing I can kind of see, I think, that the palette fork is not moving even when the air is being applied. Oh, it is moving. Okay, anyway, I think it's safe. Right now it doesn't really matter if the impulse jewel is in correctly or not. Because it's I see the palette fork moving when the air is applied. It may be in the right position, but because it's broken anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is just that not to put it back, not to put the screw in a way that damages the balance wheel further. Okay, so now the other thing is, because we know the pivot the bottom pivot has a problem, this movement may exhibit better behavior when it's in this position. Seems about the same. It turns, but it doesn't. Let's see if I can. Okay, anyway, it doesn't want to run. So that's what I want to do today. There's all the parts for this project. Put it back in the future projects area. Now that's crazy because that's a 40-minute long video and I basically did nothing. But I think from looking at that, you can see what is involved in watchmaking. And you can also understand that when you see these real watchmakers on YouTube and they show you in 20 minutes or 20 to 40 minutes a complete rebuild of a movement, there is a lot of work involved in doing that that's off camera. And that's kind of what got me interested in actually kind of looking at watch movements and getting my hands onto some of this work myself, just to feel like, just to have some empathy for what watchmakers of old and modern watchmakers, what the skill is, what the level of skill is that involved actually is, and what it's like to work in that tiny world of particularly a movement like that Cal 44. It is just insanely small, and it still blows my mind. I mean, just the reason I wanted to get that movement under the microscope is that I did this crazy thing of like trying to rebuild that movement without a microscope, somewhat successfully, but it was insane. It took me forever. And even under the microscope, you can see, in some ways, you're just seeing even in greater detail how challenging the work is. So I don't know what to say besides that, but I think this is super interesting. I didn't expect this video to be as interesting as it was for me personally, and but it was super interesting for me. I hope it was interesting for you too. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.